It was a cold, silent night on Colony 9, a small mining outpost on the edge of the galaxy. The wind carried dust and ash through the metal streets. Neon lights flickered weakly, and most workers were already asleep after another long day in the mines. Only one man still worked in the dim light of his workshop, Ethan Cole. Ethan was a human mechanic. His shop was small, filled with broken machines, wires, and half-repaired drones. He was tired and hungry, his face covered with grease. He sat beside a heater eating a small bowl of soup, his only meal for the day. He looked at the soup and smiled weakly. "Another fine dinner," he whispered to himself. The spoon shook slightly in his hand. Life on Colony 9 was never easy. Jobs paid little, and most people forgot what kindness meant. Everyone was too busy trying to survive. Outside, the night was darker than usual. The mining fog covered the stars, and the sound of distant engines echoed across the colony. Ethan was about to close his door when he heard something, a soft cry. At first he thought it was the wind, but then he heard it again, a small weak sob coming from the alley beside his shop. Ethan stood up and walked outside, his boots clanking against the metal ground. The cold hit his face like ice. He turned toward the sound and saw two small figures hiding behind a pile of scrap metal. They were two young alien girls, maybe 8 or 9 years old. Their skin had a faint blue glow. Their clothes were torn and their eyes looked frightened and hungry. They shivered as they saw him approach. "Hey, it's okay," Ethan said softly, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. "I'm not going to hurt you." The older girl held the younger one tightly. "Please, no trouble," she whispered in broken English. "We only look for food." Ethan looked at their thin faces, their empty eyes. Most people on this colony would have ignored them, or worse. But something inside him couldn't. Maybe because he remembered being hungry once too. Maybe because he knew what it felt like to be alone in the dark. He sighed, then knelt down. "Come on. You both look like you haven't eaten in days." The girls hesitated, then slowly followed him inside the workshop. The warmth of the heater made them shiver again, but this time in relief. Ethan poured the rest of his soup into 2 metal cups and placed them in front of the girls. "It's not much," he said, smiling gently, "but it's warm." They looked at him with wide eyes, surprised. The younger one whispered, "For us?" Ethan nodded. "Yeah, for you." They ate fast, almost scared the food would disappear. Ethan watched quietly, feeling a strange warmth in his chest. When they finished, the younger girl looked up and said, "Thank you." "Kind human," he chuckled. "No need for thanks. Just stay safe out there." The older girl held something in her hand, a small crystal pendant glowing faintly blue. She placed it on the table. "Gift," she said softly. "For you?" Ethan frowned. "Hey, no, you don't have to." But the girls were already heading for the door. Before he could stop them, they were gone, swallowed by the fog and night. Ethan stepped outside, calling after them, but all he could see were their small footprints fading into the dust. He picked up the crystal pendant and turned it in his hand. It shimmered with strange light, soft but deep, like it held a heartbeat inside. He could feel warmth from it, almost alive. "Weird thing," he murmured, hanging it on a nail above his workbench. That night, as he tried to sleep, the wind howled outside. The colony lights flickered again, and the pendant began to glow brighter, as if reacting to something far away. For a moment, Ethan thought he heard whispers, words he didn't understand. Then just as suddenly it went dark again. He sat up, looking out the window. In the distance, over the silent hills of Colony 9, a strange light moved across the sky, slow and steady, like a ship without sound. Ethan whispered, "What in the stars?" The light flickered once, then disappeared beyond the horizon. The night returned to silence. Ethan lay back down, staring at the ceiling. His heart beat faster, not from fear, but from something else. A feeling he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Somewhere deep inside, he knew this night was special. Something had changed. He didn't know that his simple act of kindness would echo through the galaxy. 10 years had passed since that cold night on Colony 9, the night Ethan Cole gave 2 hungry girls a warm meal. The world around him had changed, but his small workshop remained the same. Rust on the walls, oil stains on the floor, and the same metal chair he always sat on. The colony had grown darker over the years, more machines, less kindness. People came and went, but Ethan stayed. He was older now, his beard gray, his eyes tired but gentle. And above his workbench still hung the crystal pendant, glowing faintly blue just like it had the night he found it. Ethan didn't know why, but he couldn't throw it away. He often caught himself staring at it while fixing ships. Sometimes when he helped someone without expecting payment, the pendant pulsed with a soft light, as if alive. It was strange, but he had grown used to it. That morning, Ethan was repairing a miner's shuttle. The engines were burned, wires broken. The owner, a rough man named Drax, shouted from outside, "Hey, old man!
Hurry it up!"
I need this ship by sundown." Ethan wiped his hands. "You'll get it when it's fixed." "Not before," Drax cursed and left. Ethan sighed. "People get angrier every year," he muttered. He leaned under the engine, tightening a bolt, when he heard a click. Suddenly, sparks flew and the ship's power core flashed red. Ethan jumped back. It should have exploded. But instead, the pendant hanging nearby glowed bright blue. The power stabilized. The danger was gone. Ethan froze. What just happened? The pendant slowly dimmed again as if nothing had occurred. He touched it gently. It was warm, almost like it was breathing. That night, he couldn't sleep. He sat near the heater, the pendant in his hand, staring at its light. "Who were those girls?" he whispered. "And what is this thing, really?" He remembered their faces, scared, hungry, but full of life. He remembered the way the older one had said, "Gift for you." Outside, a storm raged. Dust and lightning struck the colony domes, shaking the walls. Ethan looked out the window and saw the dark clouds glow blue for a moment, the same color as the pendant. He rubbed his eyes. "I'm losing my mind," he said softly. Then he heard something, a voice. Not loud but clear, a whisper inside his mind. "Kindness is remembered." Ethan dropped the pendant in shock. It fell to the ground, but instead of breaking, it floated in midair for a second, spinning slowly. The blue glow turned golden, lighting up the entire room. Then it fell back down, silent again. Ethan stared for a long time. "Okay," he breathed. "Definitely not normal." The next day, a traveler arrived at his workshop. She wore a hood, her face hidden. She spoke softly. "Are you the one called Ethan Cole?" He nodded. "That's me. You need repairs?" She placed a small cube on the table. "No, I was told to give you this." Ethan frowned. "By who?" The woman smiled faintly. "By someone who remembers your kindness." Before he could ask more, she walked out, disappearing into the fog like a ghost. Ethan stared at the cube. When he touched it, it projected a hologram, a star map. And on one corner of it, tiny words appeared. 10 cycles. "Wait for us," he stepped back, confused. 10 cycles? Wait for who? He looked at the pendant. It was glowing again, stronger than before. He felt something deep inside his chest. A connection. Weeks turned into months. The colony grew worse. Pirates began raiding supply ships. People lost hope. Ethan helped where he could, repairing homes, fixing power lines, feeding hungry children. Each time he helped someone, the pendant glowed brighter. The whispers became stronger, though he couldn't understand the language. Then one night, as he was closing the shop, he saw a light in the sky again. Not a star. It moved fast, burning blue and gold. It wasn't a regular ship. It was bigger, smoother, almost alive. The colony guards raised alarms, but the light disappeared before anyone could react. Ethan stood outside, wind whipping across his face, pendant glowing like a tiny sun against his chest. He whispered to the empty sky, "Is that you? The girls from that night?" The pendant pulsed once as if answering yes. That night he sat by his window, unable to sleep. He felt like the universe was holding its breath. Something was coming. Something big. He turned the pendant in his hand and smiled faintly. 10 cycles. That's 10 years, he murmured. It's been almost that long. Outside, thunder rolled across the colony. Inside his workshop, every machine flickered with strange energy. And in the far distance, beyond the mountains of metal and dust, a faint golden shimmer appeared in the night sky. He didn't know it yet. But the girls he once fed were no longer orphans, and they were on their way back, bringing with them the power of a galactic empire. The sky above Colony 9 had turned a pale orange from the constant dust storms. Every night, lightning rolled through the clouds, and the air smelled of burnt metal. Life on the colony had become harder than ever. But inside a small workshop near the East Landing pads, Ethan Cole was quietly working, unaware that his world was about to change forever. He sat alone at his bench, fixing an old comms terminal, one of the last working ones on the colony. His hands moved slowly but skillfully, connecting wires, cleaning dust from the circuits. The pendant around his neck, that faintly glowing, blue crystal, pulsed with a gentle rhythm like a heartbeat. Ethan had stopped questioning it. Over the years, he'd come to accept that the pendant was strange. Maybe alien, maybe something else. It had saved his life more than once. When machines malfunctioned, it steadied them. When power ran low, it glowed brighter. But tonight it felt different. The glow wasn't steady anymore. It was flickering. Sharp bursts of light, like a code. Ethan frowned. "That's new," he muttered. He looked closer, noticing that the pendant's flashes matched the blinking light on his comms terminal, the one that wasn't even powered yet. He slowly turned the dial. The old machine crackled with static. Then through the noise came a faint sound. A voice. At first, it was only static. Then words began to form, soft, distant, but real. Ethan Cole, 10 cycles. The promise remains. Ethan froze. His heart raced. "Who is this?" he shouted into the receiver. No answer, only a low hum. Then, one more phrase came through, almost like a whisper. "Wait for us." The terminal went dead. The pendant stopped glowing. Silence filled the room. Ethan stood still for a long time, breathing hard. 10 cycles, he repeated quietly. That's 10 years. It's been exactly 10. He spent the next few days trying to decode the message, but every time he powered the comms terminal, it shut down on its own, almost as if the signal didn't want to be traced. The people around him had no idea. The colony's population had dropped to half. Most miners had left for richer worlds. Those who stayed were desperate, bitter, and hopeless. Yet Ethan kept fixing machines, sharing what little food he had, helping whoever needed him. He didn't know why he still cared. Maybe it was because the pendant seemed to glow strongest when he did something kind, like it was rewarding him. One evening, as he was walking back from the supply yard, he saw a little boy sitting in the dirt, crying beside a broken drone. Ethan knelt. "What's wrong, kid?" The boy sniffed. "It's my father's drone. He went to the mines, said he'd come back when it flies again." Ethan smiled softly. "Then let's fix it." He spent 2 hours repairing the small drone. When it lifted off the ground, the boy laughed. The kind of pure laugh Ethan hadn't heard in years. That night, when Ethan returned home, the pendant shone brighter than ever before, filling the entire room with soft blue light. And then, his comms terminal powered on by itself. A new signal appeared. Not just audio this time. A pattern. Lines and circles danced across the screen, glowing in rhythm with the pendant. It looked like a star map, but not one he recognized. In the center, a symbol appeared, the same spiral design that had been carved faintly on the crystal pendant years ago. A soft hum filled the room again. Final cycle complete. Approach begins. Ethan stared at the words as they slowly faded away. For the first time in years, he felt something like fear, not because of danger, but because something vast and unknown was coming his way. He stepped outside, the night cold and still. The colony lights flickered in the distance and the sky looked alive with strange, shifting colors. He whispered to himself, "What are you sending me? Who are you?" Then suddenly, the pendant burned against his skin. The pain was sharp but quick. He looked down and saw a symbol forming, glowing lines crawling across the crystal like writing. He couldn't read it, but he knew one thing for sure. It was a message meant for him. Over the next few nights, people began reporting strange events. Lights seen moving across the horizon, machines turning on without power, drones hovering by themselves. The colony governor blamed solar flares. But Ethan knew better. The pendant glowed every time the sky flashed blue. On the 10th night, he woke suddenly to a deep vibration shaking the ground. The walls rattled, cups fell off the shelves. He rushed outside and froze. The entire sky above Colony 9 was lit with golden light. A shape moved between the clouds, massive, silent, and smooth like glass. A ship. No, something greater. It descended slowly, surrounded by swirling light and dust. People screamed, running in fear. The colony defenses powered up, but all systems failed instantly, and then, from the sky, came a voice. Not through speakers, not through comms, but inside every mind on the colony. "We are here for Ethan Cole." Ethan's heart stopped. The pendant around his neck blazed brighter than a sun. He whispered, "It's them." The ground trembled again, and high above, through the blinding light, two figures began to descend. The night sky over Colony 9 burned with gold and blue light. Clouds swirled like a storm made of stars. Every miner, trader, and child came out of their shelters, staring at the impossible sight above them, a massive ship, silent and smooth, descending slowly through the dust. It wasn't like any vessel they had seen before. It didn't roar or hum. It glided, moving with a grace that felt almost alive. The surface of the ship shimmered like liquid glass, reflecting every flicker of lightning. On the ground, chaos spread. The colony's defense alarm screamed, red lights flashing across rooftops. Guards shouted orders, weapons aimed at the sky. But none of it mattered. Every weapon powered down on its own. Every machine shut off, as if the ship had reached inside their systems and told them to sleep. And in the middle of it all stood Ethan Cole, the old mechanic, his worn jacket flapping in the cold wind, eyes fixed on the descending ship. The pendant around his neck blazed with golden light, brighter than ever before. It pulsed in perfect rhythm with the glowing ship above. He whispered, "It's them. It has to be." The ship stopped a few hundred feet above the ground, casting a shadow big enough to cover half the colony. Then, a single beam of soft white light shot down, striking the dirt right in front of Ethan's workshop. The air rippled like heat, and from within the beam, two figures began to appear. The crowd gasped. The light dimmed, revealing two tall women in shimmering silver armor, their hair flowing like strands of starlight. Their eyes glowed faintly blue, the same color as the pendant. They moved with calm grace, but the air around them buzzed with quiet power. Ethan's heart pounded. He couldn't move. He knew those faces, older, stronger, but still carrying the same innocence he saw 10 years ago, the two orphan girls he once fed on a cold night. One of them smiled, gentle, warm. "Ethan Cole," she said softly, her voice echoing slightly, like it carried through more than air. "You remember us?" Ethan stepped forward, disbelief in his eyes. It can't be." The younger one removed her helmet, revealing glowing blue skin marked with golden lines, royal symbols. "You gave us food when we were nothing," she said. "You gave us warmth when the galaxy turned its back. We did not forget." The crowd around them fell silent, watching in awe. Ethan's lips trembled. "You were just children." The older sister nodded. "We were. Now we are heirs of the Celian Empire. Our father, Emperor Vareth, sent us to repay a debt, one that cannot be measured." Ethan stared at them. The pendant around his neck vibrated, sending tiny sparks into the air. The older sister lifted her hand. The pendant floated up, spinning slowly between them. "You kept this," she said softly. "That means you remembered too." Ethan nodded weakly. "I never forgot that night." The pendant released a beam of blue light, projecting a hologram in the air, a vast star-filled map. In the center of it burned the Celian royal emblem. Gasps filled the crowd. The older sister turned to them. "You call this place Colony 9. But from this day forward, it is under Celian protection. No more raids, no more hunger." Her voice carried across the entire colony. Machines turned back on. Lights flickered to life. The air felt warmer. Ethan looked up at the ship, its lights shifting softly, almost like it was breathing. He whispered, "You came back for me?" The younger one smiled. "We promised. 10 cycles ago you showed us humanity's kindness. Now we show you our strength." The guards lowered their weapons. Some people fell to their knees. Others cried, not from fear, but from awe. Ethan still couldn't believe it. He took a slow step forward. "Why me? I'm just a mechanic. I didn't do anything special." The older sister looked at him with a gentle sadness. "That's what makes you different. You helped without wanting anything back. And that changed everything. The galaxy remembers kindness, Ethan Cole." She reached out her hand. "Come. Our father wishes to meet the man who taught his daughters compassion." Ethan hesitated. The workshop behind him looked small now, like a memory from another life. His hands were shaking. I don't belong in your world." The younger sister smiled. "You belong wherever kindness exists." The beam of light widened, surrounding him. Dust lifted off the ground as he slowly floated upward, the pendant glowing golden between them. The crowd below watched in stunned silence as the 3 figures rose into the great ship. And then, just before the doors closed, Ethan looked down one last time at the colony, the place where it all began. He whispered, "Guess I'm finally going home." The ship vanished into the sky, leaving behind a golden trail that shimmered for hours. That night, the people of Colony 9 didn't sleep. They spoke of the man who fed 2 orphan girls and was taken by a ship of light. No one knew where he went. But every child who looked up at the stars that night swore they saw 3 new ones shining brighter than the rest. Kindness had left the colony that night, but it had also returned to the stars. The golden beam of light carried Ethan Cole higher and higher into the sky. The colony below grew smaller until it looked like a tiny patch of metal glowing faintly in the darkness. The cold wind vanished, replaced by warm, weightless silence. Above him, the massive Celian ship opened like a flower made of light. Its surface shifted, transparent and glowing, revealing endless corridors and shining decks inside. Ethan's heart pounded. His rough hands trembled. He was a simple mechanic, not a hero, not a soldier. And yet, here he was, rising toward a ship that looked more like a dream than a machine. The 2 women floated beside him, the same orphan girls he had once fed, now regal and powerful. Their silver armor reflected the stars. Their eyes glowed softly, calm but full of something human. Warmth. When they entered the ship, Ethan felt gravity return beneath his feet. The floor was smooth like glass but soft under his boots. A gentle hum filled the air like a heartbeat. The corridors were made of pure light, walls that shimmered with faint, moving constellations. He looked around, wide-eyed. "This place, it's alive," he whispered. The younger sister smiled. "It is. The ship breathes, learns, and listens. It's not built and it's grown." Ethan nodded slowly. "And you really built all this?" The older one shook her head. "Not us, our people. The Celian Empire. Our technology is powered by harmony, not greed. You showed us that when we were children." They led him through a wide corridor that opened into a vast hall. The ceiling stretched into darkness filled with floating stars. At the far end stood a massive figure, tall, graceful, dressed in dark blue robes that shimmered like the night sky. He turned as they entered. His eyes glowed gold and his voice was deep, soft, and powerful. "Ethan Cole of Earth," the man said. "Welcome aboard the Aurelius Dawn. I am Vareth, Emperor of the Celian worlds." Ethan bowed awkwardly. "Your Majesty, sir." The Emperor raised a hand. "You fed my daughters when they had nothing. You gave them warmth in a place where no one else would. That act reached farther than you could ever imagine." Ethan blinked. "I just gave them soup." The Emperor smiled faintly. "And yet that small act changed the heart of an empire." The older sister stepped forward. "After that night, Father found us. He was searching for us for weeks. The crystal you kept, it was a royal beacon, something only our blood can create. When you took it, your kindness imprinted on it. It carried your essence, your humanity. Ethan looked at the pendant still glowing around his neck. So that's why it reacted to me. The Emperor nodded. It bonded to your spirit. The pendant learned your values, compassion, patience, and courage. It became a bridge between our kind and yours. He turned, pointing at the great window that showed the stars. For centuries, our empire grew through conquest. But when I saw the memory stored in that crystal, the image of a poor human sharing his last meal, I realized strength means nothing without empathy. You reminded us of what we had forgotten. Ethan stood silent, his throat tight. He wasn't used to speeches or gratitude. He just fixed ships and helped people when he could. The Emperor continued. You will be honored across every Celian world. But more than that, you will be remembered as the one who taught the Empire the meaning of kindness. The younger sister stepped closer, her eyes soft. We came back not just to thank you, Ethan, but to bring you home. Ethan looked around. At the glowing walls, the gentle hum, the endless stars outside. This isn't my home, he said quietly. My home is that dusty little colony down there. The Emperor smiled. Then we will make it better. Because of you, Colony 9 will thrive. No more hunger. No more fear. That is our promise. Ethan turned to the window again. The ship began to move, gliding silently through the upper atmosphere. From this height, Colony 9 sparkled faintly beneath the clouds. He felt something deep inside, not pride, but peace. He looked at the two sisters, remembering them as starving children hiding in the shadows of his workshop. Now they stood tall, commanding the stars. You kept your promise, he said softly. The older one smiled. You kept faith in us. The pendant glowed brighter, floating up between them again. The blue turned golden, filling the hall with light. The Emperor placed his hand over his heart. From this day forward, he declared, you are Ethan Cole, guardian of the light, the man whose heart guided an empire. The hall erupted in a sound like wind, the Celian way of applause. The light shimmered and expanded, surrounding Ethan completely. He closed his eyes. For the first time in his life, he felt weightless not because of space, but because of peace outside the ship. A new star appeared in the sky above. Colony 9, a small golden light that never faded. No one on the colony could explain it, but the children called it the Star of the Mechanic. And somewhere among the stars, Ethan Cole smiled. Kindness had crossed the galaxy and returned as legend. The Aurelius dawn moved through space like a floating sunrise, silent, graceful, and bright. Entire constellations reflected on its silver hull. Every window shimmered like liquid glass, painting the stars in gold. Inside, Ethan Cole walked through its endless halls, eyes wide with disbelief. The ship was not just metal and light, it was alive. Its walls pulsed softly like veins, carrying streams of blue energy that glowed when people passed by. Every corridor opened into something new, a garden floating in zero gravity, a chamber filled with singing crystals and halls where light shaped itself into moving memories. Ethan paused at one of the glowing gardens. Transparent petals floated in midair, spinning slowly around him. The air was warm and carried a scent like rain after a storm. Tiny spheres of water drifted by, and when he touched one, it glowed softly. A Celian child laughed nearby. The garden likes you, she said with a smile. Ethan chuckled. Never thought I'd be liked by a garden. He looked out through a glass wall and saw the stars spread wide, hundreds of worlds shining below. He whispered, I never knew the galaxy was this beautiful. Behind him, the younger princess Lyra appeared. It wasn't always, she said. Before it was full of war and greed. Now it's changing because of you. Ethan turned to her embarrassed. Because of me? I'm just a man who fixed broken ships. Lyra smiled softly. Exactly. You fixed things. And that's what the galaxy needed. Someone to remind us how to repair, not destroy. Later, Ethan was led into the Celian throne hall, a chamber so vast it seemed to have its own sky. The ceiling was a moving field of stars. At the center stood the Emperor Vareth, surrounded by advisors and guards dressed in silver robes. As Ethan entered, the crowd bowed. He froze, unsure what to do. Hi? The Emperor smiled warmly. Still humble, I see. He gestured toward a raised platform of light. Step forward, Ethan Cole. The Empire owes you a debt that cannot be repaid with words. Ethan climbed the steps slowly. The floor beneath his boots rippled like calm water. The Emperor raised his hand and the pendant around Ethan's neck floated upward, glowing brilliantly. The hall darkened and the pendant projected a golden sphere in midair, a miniature galaxy spinning slowly. "This," said the Emperor, "is the map of every world under Celian protection. And now there will be one more." A new star appeared at the edge of the map, marked with Ethan's name. "Colony 9, the Emperor continued, "will no longer be forgotten. It will be protected, supplied, and free. No one will go hungry again. That is our gift, to you and to your people." The hall filled with a soft hum as every Celian bowed their heads. Ethan stood frozen, speechless. You're helping my colony? All of them?" The Emperor nodded. "Yes, because of your act of kindness. You gave 2 children food, and in return the universe learned compassion again." The light faded. The Emperor stepped closer and placed something small in Ethan's hands, a sphere of silver crystal, glowing faintly blue. "This is the heart of the Aurelius," he said. "A living fragment of our ship's soul. It will answer only to you." Ethan looked at the sphere. "What does it do?" "It listens," the Emperor said. "When you speak with kindness, it listens. When you act with courage, it follows. Wherever you go, it will carry our protection." Lyra added softly, "It's a gift, but also a reminder. The greatest power in the galaxy is not in machines or weapons. It's in mercy." Ethan smiled slowly. "Guess I've been saying that all my life. Just never thought anyone would actually listen." The Emperor laughed softly. "Empires fall. Technology fades. But kindness echoes forever. That is why we honor you." That evening, the ship drifted near Colony 9's orbit. Ethan stood by the great window once more, watching his home world below. But now the dusty colony shimmered with light, Celian drones rebuilding it, power restored, water flowing, and children playing outside again. He felt tears rise. "They're really doing it," he whispered. Lyra joined him. "You changed their fate, Ethan, and ours," he turned to her. "You give me too much credit," she smiled. "You gave us too much hope." The ship's hum deepened and Ethan looked out again at the stars. For the first time, he didn't feel small. He felt like part of something infinite. The Emperor's voice echoed through the halls. "From this day forward, let the stars remember his name. Let every world know that even a single meal, shared in kindness, can change the course of history." The light around Ethan brightened, surrounding him in gold. The heart of the Aurelius pulsed once, connecting him to the living energy of the ship itself. And in that moment, the man who once lived in a tiny workshop on a forgotten colony stood as a legend, the guardian of light, the human whose compassion reshaped an empire. Outside, a new constellation appeared near Colony 9. 3 bright stars shone together, one golden, one blue, one white. The Celian people named it the Mechanic's Star. But Ethan just smiled quietly and said, "It's not about me. It's about what one small kindness can become." And somewhere among those stars, the heart of the Aurelius glowed, carrying humanity's light forever across the galaxy. Years passed. The golden ship Aurelius Dawn became a legend across the galaxy, a symbol of peace, not war. Wherever it went, it carried one story that never faded, the story of a human mechanic who fed 2 starving girls and changed the fate of worlds. The star of the mechanic in the night sky above Colony 9. There now shone a golden star, bright, constant, and unblinking. The people called it Ethan's Star. Children played under its glow, laughing, never knowing the hunger their parents once endured. Water flowed freely through new silver pipes. Energy shimmered in the air. The colony that was once dying had become a thriving city, a trade hub filled with laughter, light, and life. At the center of it all stood a small bronze statue, an old man holding a bowl of soup. The inscription read, "Kindness is remembered always." Every visitor stopped to touch the base of that statue for luck. No one left empty-handed, not because of magic, but because generosity had become the colony's law. The echo threw the stars far from the colony. On the Celian homeworld, the royal court often gathered to tell the same story. Young Celian cadets were taught, power protects but kindness connects. In the Hall of Memory, a single crystal pendant hung in a beam of golden light. It still glowed faintly blue, its rhythm steady, a heartbeat frozen in eternity. When new emperors took the throne, They placed their hands upon that crystal and repeated the vow spoken by Emperor Vareth himself. We shall rule not by fear, but by mercy, as taught by Ethan Cole, the guardian of light. And somewhere in the stars, Ethan's name became a quiet prayer spoken by travelers in need, a word of hope whispered when all else failed. The travelers return, decades later. A small ship arrived on Colony 9. It wasn't made of gold or glass, just a simple trader's shuttle. From it stepped a young pilot, her skin faintly blue, her eyes glowing softly. She wore a small crystal around her neck, the same kind of pendant Ethan once carried. She walked through the streets, amazed by what she saw. Children helping elders, mechanics sharing tools, shops giving free meals to the hungry. At the old workshop, now preserved as a museum, she stood quietly. The walls were still dark and covered in dust, but at the center hung an old workbench untouched for years. A simple metal bowl rested on it next to a faded note. The note said, "You don't have to change the galaxy. Just help the next person you meet." The young pilot smiled. Grandfather always knew what mattered. She placed her hand on the bench, and for a moment the pendant on her neck glowed, faint and warm. Somewhere far above, a small spark of golden light flickered across the sky, as if answering her. The whisper among stars in the centuries that followed, countless civilizations rose and fell. Empires crumbled, new species explored the stars. But across every known world, human, Celian, or otherwise, one teaching survived. Temples carved his story in stone. Hollow books called him the first light. Even the machines that ruled future galaxies carried a simple greeting code in their memory banks. Protocol Ethan 9, help before you harm. No one remembered where the saying began, but the legend always ended the same way. A man once gave 2 orphan girls a meal, and the universe never forgot. The endless dawn in the far reaches of the galaxy, on a quiet moon surrounded by glowing clouds, a soft light sometimes appears in the sky. Travelers say it looks like a man's shadow walking across the stars, repairing machines, guiding lost ships, helping those in need. They call him the mechanic of the dawn. Some say it's only a story. But others swear that when their ships are dying, when their power fades and all seems lost, a soft blue glow appears on their control panels, and a warm voice whispers, "Don't give up. Kindness finds a way." And suddenly their engines restart. The final light. If you stand on Colony 9 today and look up at Ethan's star, you can still see the faint golden shimmer moving beside it. The Aurelius dawn. Still watching, still protecting, inside it, deep in a chamber of endless light, rests the heart of the Aurelius, pulsing like a steady heartbeat. And though centuries have passed, some swear that if you listen closely, you can still hear a voice echoing through the hum of the stars. A single act of kindness can travel farther than light. Ethan Cole never sought power, never dreamed of fame, and never wanted to be remembered. But the galaxy did not forget him, because the simplest thing he ever did became the greatest legend it ever knew.